Thomas moved into the ground floor of an aging two-story house tucked away on a quiet street. The landlord, an older man with tired eyes and yellowed nails, handed over the keys with one warning. "Don't go upstairs, it's already rented." Thomas didn't press for details. After all, rent was cheap, the location was ideal, and the place had charm in a creaky, antique sort of way. The rooms were dim but cozy, and the wallpaper, though peeling, hinted at stories buried beneath the surface. On his first night, Thomas unpacked his things, played some music, and tried to ignore the occasional thump from the ceiling above. The first few days passed quietly, but at night, Thomas began noticing things that didn't quite make sense. Around midnight, soft footsteps echoed above his bedroom, slow, deliberate, as if someone were pacing. He assumed it was the upstairs tenant, but there was something strange about the rhythm. The steps never led to or from the stairs, just endless circling. Once, the footsteps stopped directly above his bed, and Thomas froze, waiting for them to move again. But instead of continuing, they simply vanished, as if whoever was walking had evaporated into thin air. He tried to sleep, but the silence that followed felt even heavier than the sound. One rainy afternoon, a food delivery arrived, but not for Thomas. The courier looked confused, holding a bag labeled second floor. Thomas explained no one should be ordering from upstairs, but the courier insisted, "I've delivered here before, always to the top floor." Out of curiosity, Thomas asked what the tenant looked like. "Tall guy," the courier said. "Didn't say much. Always met me at the door halfway open." That night, Thomas stared at the ceiling for hours, wondering who, or what, had been living directly above him all this time. Thomas decided to leave his doubts behind and focus on his freelance work, but the ceiling above him creaked with unsettling regularity. One evening, a folded piece of paper was slipped under his door. No envelope, no name. It read, in shaky handwriting, "He doesn't want you up there, but he's always listening." Thomas froze, reading it over and over, feeling his heart race. He ran to the door, flung it open, no one in the hallway, just silence. But when he looked up the staircase again, he swore the padlock had shifted slightly. That night, unable to sleep, Thomas stood at the base of the staircase, staring up into the darkness. The upper floor seemed to breathe with a life of its own. Every few minutes, a quiet thud or whisper echoed through the ceiling. He couldn't take it anymore. Grabbing a flashlight, he slowly climbed the stairs, expecting the landlord to barge in and stop him. But no one came. The door at the top was shut tight, padlocked and covered in layers of dust. But someone had recently disturbed the grime, as if fingers had gripped the doorknob. Thomas leaned closer, examining the doorknob. The faint outline of a handprint was clearly visible, fresh and out of place among the years of dust. He tried the handle, but it didn't budge. The padlock was solid and rusted, yet somehow it felt warm. A strange chill ran down his spine as he heard a soft creak from the other side, like someone shifting their weight just beyond the door. He whispered, "Hello?" But the only response was a slow knock from the inside. He bolted down the stairs, heart pounding, but the knocking continued behind him, rhythmic and patient. Thomas leaned closer, examining the doorknob. The faint outline of a handprint was clearly visible, fresh and out of place among the years of dust. He tried the handle, but it didn't budge. The padlock was solid and rusted, yet somehow it felt warm. A strange chill ran down his spine as he heard a soft creak from the other side, like someone shifting their weight just beyond the door. He whispered, "Hello?" But the only response was a slow knock from the inside. He bolted down the stairs, heart pounding, but the knocking continued behind him, rhythmic and patient. Determined to understand what was happening, Thomas grabbed a flashlight and crept upstairs. The wooden steps creaked under his weight, each one louder than the last. At the top, he found the door, sealed with thick wooden boards nailed in haphazardly, like someone had tried to keep something inside. The air smelled of mold and old dust, but beneath it lingered something metallic, almost like blood. He reached out and touched the boards. They were cold, too cold. Just then, behind the door, something dragged slowly across the floor, and a whisper bled through the cracks. "You shouldn't be here." Thomas stumbled back from the door, heart hammering, as the dragging sound grew louder, closer. He turned to run, but the hallway behind him had changed. It was longer, darker, as if the house itself didn't want him to leave. Shadows crawled along the walls, reaching out like fingers, and the floorboards groaned beneath an invisible weight. In a moment of panic, he burst back into his apartment and slammed the door shut, pressing his back to it. But even inside, the sounds didn't stop. Footsteps above, voices in the vents, soft tapping on the ceiling. And then, from the corner of the room, came a voice that wasn't his own. "You let it know you're listening."